Hello, I am Brian Mitchell. I am here at the F&C Live event and I am with one of the speakers at today's event, Shivvy. Hi Shivvy, how are you?
Hi, good. Glad to be in your hot seat.
Absolutely. So Shivvy, my first question is going to be an obvious one. You are a futurist. What is a futurist?
It's an interesting industry term. I didn't choose the term. The term sort of found me. And the best way I describe it is it's really a scenario planner. Being able to look very, very closely at patterns, shifts, and signals, in my case with innovation, because I know you've got risk forecasters as well, that very carefully then analyze those shifts and signals, look at the information, and then make our own informed view of where this could take us. And also, I would say futuring isn't even just about looking 5, 10, 15 years into the horizon. I think that's pretty long term and a little difficult for a lot of people to really feel that it's here, or it doesn't feel as realistic. And I prefer focusing a little more on the near to medium. Most of us are thinking about what we're going to have for dinner tonight or planning what we're doing next week, right, or next month. And I just think making it really realistic and accessible is the job of a futurist, to be able to say, based on these signals and shifts and this information I'm seeing now, and actually looking back retrospectively as important as just looking at where we are in the now. So I would say looking at how things have gone in the past with consumer uptake of new technology, what's worked, what people have found really uncomfortable or uncanny, and then marrying that with where we are now to paint a very clear picture of the next reality.
So obviously you don't have a crystal ball,
no.
So you can't be certain about the future.
Correct.
So you've listed a few kind of things that you can look back on the past, but is there any one specific thing that you hone in on to try and make it as accurate as possible? Because obviously there's the world, in an ever-changing world where so much is happening in a fast-paced world, there's so many different directions you can look at. Is there a particular thing that you look and put your energy into to try and predict for the future?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say there are actually remarkably some constants that we can be quite sure of. So you rightly point out that, you know, the innovation ecosystem, for example, changes week to week. There's a new capability, a new development, a new use case for AI, data science, open data. And I keep track of that a great deal. I'd say I don't get too much sleep. I'm sort of up at 2 in the morning, quickly writing something on a post-it. And so I really do brainstorm at all hours of the day. But I'd say the constant for me is really human behavior and psychology. And I found that about 8 years ago, when I set up my forecasting lab, after having run digital for 8 years for a massive telco, we started getting a staggering amount of demand from businesses, governments, individuals who wanted some advisory, not just for what's the digital innovation coming our way and how can we prepare, which is the key bread and butter of what I do, but actually in equal measure, what's the psychology behind it? So we started developing the neuroscience strand of my work even further. And interestingly, I do as many speeches on the science behind motivation, stress, persuasion, negotiation, consumer adoption, innovation. How does that work in business? What does that mean for you guys sat in the audience? As I do with demystifying AI and the metaverse. So that's my constant, is human behavior doesn't suddenly shift. I mean, I think as people, we have similar drivers of motivation. We have similar things that inspire us and prompt us to, for example, use a certain digital product. And the way that we're wired behaviorally hasn't actually changed. And biologically, we are still geared in the same way. Our brains are still circuited in that same way. So that's the constant I'd say I'd use as the greatest measure. Is not the tech coming up. It's, are we actually going to use it? Is it even useful? Is it going to go the distance? And people, as the primary core of it, are, I would say, the main yardstick that I use there.
Yeah, you're right. We've not evolved anywhere near as quickly as technology has, especially since the internet.
Yeah.
And now the one that you mentioned there, that would be good to get your sort of predictions on. AI, the thing that absolutely everybody's talking about, and I know you're going to talk about today in your talk. But what do you see AI doing in the near and maybe even long-term future?
Yeah. And you know, one thing that's interesting to say here is that AI itself is not new. It's been in play for 4, 5, 6 decades. In fact, since the 40s. At that point, it was a simple, tiny robotic mouse. Then it became a system that could, you know, beat human quiz masters and the famous American quiz shows,
Chess.
right? Exactly, exactly. But since then, it's just gone like that. The difference as well is it's exploded into the mainstream. So in a way, the mass mainstream knowledge of it makes it also feel like it's this quite newfangled thing that's going to disrupt our livelihoods, it's going to upend our way of working, when actually there's a bit of myth busting here, and I would say that actually it will create and is creating as many jobs as it may potentially threaten. I think the other thing is that it's not us versus AI, it's actually us versus other humans who are really comfortable using these AI tools. And they don't have to be coders, they don't have to be data scientists. It's just the ability to be really comfortable working alongside these tools, having just that basic digital fluency, kind of like when you've got a car, just getting under the hood of it. You don't need to be the mechanic, but just to be able to identify what's what, and actually, can I make sense of this is enough, because a lot of these tools are plug and play. I think the part that is really tricky for a lot of people with AI is what it's going to do next. It does feel, I suppose, very overwhelming. If I could pick out 3 particular traits or capacities that AI could pull off in the next year, one would be the ability to be proactive. You ask, whether it's GPT or any intelligence dashboard, a question. Find such and such data from such and such market insights. It can do that really fast. What it can't do right now, but it is being developed as we speak, is it can go outside of itself and sync up with other software to be able to make that happen and give you the most accurate and, I suppose, live market insights answer. The other, I suppose, is a trait that I wish us humans would have more of, and it's called dynamic memory. And it's to do with the system catching and correcting its flaws in real time. So it realizes when it's gone wrong, instantly corrects it, and adapts the approach to what the human needs. And the third is just being more transparent. I think with GPT tools, we all want to understand, okay, you've now pushed out this answer, but can you justify where you got this from? 4 corners of the internet, sure, but have you mixed and matched from existing materials? Because there's copyright issues there as well. So it will be more transparent about how it got to what it's giving you.
So you mentioned GPT then, which is obviously probably the biggest use case at the moment for the average person that's using AI. What do you think the biggest use case for AI is going to be for like the average person, the people who don't necessarily know how AI works in depth, just the average user? How do you think it's going to affect them the most? What's the use case there?
Sure. And I think a lot of us are actually, we have been using it for even 10, 15 years without realizing it. And this surprises some audiences. I'd say they'd go, well, I didn't think I was an AI user. And I'm like, well, actually, if you use a Maps facility, that is powered by AI. If you essentially use any digital dashboard to sign in to pay your electricity bill or your council tax, that isn't just a simple login. That is all powered by software. But it is algorithmic, because if we break it down, AI is actually lines of code humming away in this parallel, mysterious digital server somewhere. That's what it feels like. But it actually, shockingly, powers our healthcare systems, supply chains, smart cities. If you're driving around and you see the traffic lights come up, it is in the back end connected to a system to do with road traffic and signals and timing that is AI powered. And so we're actually using it far more than we think. But if it was very specific, I would say absolutely it's a GPT tool. And GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which feels like it should be more of a sci-fi Hollywood kind of blockbuster term, isn't it? But really it just means it has something called NLP, which just means natural language processing. And it just means that you and I, it's as though if you and I suddenly were able to learn at astonishingly high speed a brand new language, and we were able to not just learn that, but understand how native speakers of that language actually use the language colloquially, the back and forths, the natural conversation, not the stilted Alexas of the weather is this today. And it just understands that in black and white. And you ask it something more than that, and it's sort of like, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. But now we're seeing these systems change. And GPT models, with also the 5.0 version that's out now, can actually play back your answer with more context than we ever thought possible. That, I think, in your pocket, through the app, is the quickest way that anyone from 15 to 75 can ask an in-depth question, get a pretty quick response. But there are some, sort of caveats there. You can't trust the answer 100%.
Yeah. So Shivvy, you work with a lot of big companies and a wide range of people. What's the general consensus about the future going forward? Are people positive?
That's an interesting one, because I'd say demographically, I do see the younger, I say the later tweens as they call them, because they're so adept with digital systems, be able to feel that instant hope and optimism, for digital is the enabler to everything. And then you've got those of us that are millennials. I'd like to say elder millennials, because I'm in my early 40s now, right? We're 81 babies, but it doesn't feel like we're pure millennials. Looking at it with a healthy dose of skepticism, that it is an enabler, but actually it also opens up things like cybersecurity, data privacy for young people, especially women and guys, young boys as well, going online, issues of being targeted, being cyberbullied, things like that. We're very aware of the minefield as well. But then I'd say overall, the sentiment as well with older demographics is it can be a great enabler, use it with caution. And there is a sense of hope that the next generation will use these tools for wider good.
Shivvy, thank you very much for your time today. I'm very much looking forward to your talk. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on everything we've talked about here today.